Everybody, and welcome to Countdown to Tax Prep, presented by Teaching Tax Flow. Wherever you're joining us from, we appreciate you hopping on here with us to this quick webinar. We're not going to get into an extremely detailed amount of information here because, as a reminder, as everybody's used to us saying, everybody's situation is very, very different. That's if you're a business owner, if you're an individual, so you have a full-time job, so you're going to W-2, say you're a gig worker, you're an Uber driver, anything like that. There are a ton of similarities. But as I mentioned, there are a lot of differences. So as we jump into this here, we are going to talk about what you can really expect or what maybe you should be doing a little bit different, getting ready for tax preparation. We will say seasons in air quotes, and you will realize very soon why I just did my air quotes in there as we are joined by my counterpart here. He's much smarter and better looking, but Chris Picciurro, welcome for joining us, man. Or thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm excited about this session and excited to share my over 25 years of experience in running a CPA firm, talking through tax preparation, readiness. Ultimately, that tax preparation process is a partnership between the tax preparer and the taxpayer. And the more organized you could be as a taxpayer, not only the smoother it's going to go, but also you will receive the best results possible. That's the key in tax preparation, the best result possible, legally and ethically reducing the tax that you pay when that tax return is prepared. So being organized and some of the tips we're going to walk through today, I'm excited to share with everyone.
Absolutely, man. And probably the best way to start this off is really the same way and same format that we do all of our other webinars and our sessions similar to. We do have a podcast if anybody's interested in that. Just look up Teaching Tax Flow wherever you listen to those. We have over 115 episodes. We do those weekly. Check those out. But today, again, we're going to focus on really getting ready for tax prep. So we have a handful of questions that have been submitted to us prior to this session. That's on our Facebook group, etc., emailed or just in conversation, as well as if you are watching this live, obviously you can submit them in the chat. Or if you're watching this at a later date, again, you can email them to us. We'll get you some answers, but we're going to base these off of, I have a ton of them here. Chris, I think we're looking at about 24 questions. We'll probably get through a quarter of those, but they're really good. So we'll kind of prioritize these in some way, shape, or form. But again, this session is really built for everybody, whether it relates to you or not. Don't click off and say, oh no, this isn't me, because I guarantee one of the other questions do. So let's start off with a really basic one. Chris, I know we hear a lot about, and I'll kind of conjoin two of them together. Somebody had asked the question of, oh man, what happens if I miss a tax deadline? But then also another question that came in is, what should I do if I know ahead of time that I won't be able to meet that deadline? So what does that look like from your perspective?
Right. No, great questions. First question, if you miss a tax deadline, the best thing to do would be to get your information organized as quickly as possible. Start working with a tax preparer, be that a CPA or an enrolled agent, someone that's licensed to represent you in front of the IRS, and get your tax return prepared as quickly as possible. You did ask a question about anticipated dates and not meeting a deadline. There's a reason that tax extensions were invented, and we're going to walk through that next. So assuming you missed the deadline, take a breath. If it's on a personal tax return, if you're getting a refund, you're typically not going to get penalized at all. Just get that filed. There's a statute of limitations for getting a refund of 3 years, but get the return filed as quickly as possible. If it's a return that's subject to a penalty for late filing, or you owe money and you're subject to penalties, the best thing to do is, hey, don't chew yesterday's breakfast. Look forward, fail forward, get aligned with the right people that can get you that best result possible, and get the return prepared as quickly as possible. If you're coming up to a deadline that you can extend, I highly advise you consider filing a tax extension. Remember what I said in the beginning, the goal of tax preparation is get you legally and ethically the best result possible. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be before April 15th if you're an individual. So let's talk about those deadlines, okay? Most important dates for taxpayers. The most popular deadline date is April 15th. So that's the deadline to file a personal tax return. So April 15th of 2025 is the deadline to file a 2024 personal return. Now, if that deadline falls on a weekend or holiday, then the deadline is simply the next day. If you live in an area that there's an extended deadline, we've had so many storms and disasters, natural disasters, etc. If you live in an area, check the IRS website to see if you're in a disaster zone, then you can have an extended period of time to file. But April 15th is your default deadline as an individual. That's when your tax return is technically original due date. You can obtain a 6-month extension that brings you out to October 15th. And if you owe money, what you're going to want to do is you want to pay what you think you're going to owe by April 15th and then extend till October to actually file. The extension to file is not an extension to pay. So if you do extend to October and you owe a significant amount of money, let's say over $1,000, then you could be subject to some type of penalty. But remember, the best result possible is your main focus. Let me touch real quickly on deadlines for business returns. Remember, a single member LLC is a disregarded entity, so that gets reported on a personal return. So let's say you own a rental property and you own an LLC and you're the only owner, just report that on your personal tax return. Same with business activity on Schedule C. September 15th is the deadline for S Corporation and partnership tax returns. Partnerships are in general multi-member LLCs or entities with more than one owner or partners. You can get a 6-month extension on that as well, up to September 15th. The same rules apply with falling on a weekend or falling on a holiday. Here's the thing on those partnership returns and S Corp returns. There's a penalty of about $200 per month per owner or member for late filing. So you definitely, and that March 15th deadline sneaks up on many, many people. So if you have one of those type of entities, get that extension filed and make sure that you give yourself more time to get that tax return prepared, or make sure that it's prepared in a timely fashion. Those are the main dates for taxpayers. There are quarterly estimated tax dates. C Corps follow the same, and trusts and estates in general follow the same schedule as personal returns. You could have fiscal year end, C Corps or estates and trusts. That's more of an advanced tax situation. So just talking about tax prep readiness here, April 15th is an important date. However, if you're not going to get the best result possible, don't be afraid to extend your tax return.
Awesome. So pretty much what I'm taking from that is the worst thing you can do is absolutely nothing, or think that they will go away, right? This is not an itch that will go away on its own. And if anything, it'll snowball and get worse, obviously. So there, you did mention estimated tax payments in there. I do see a question related to that a little bit down the road here too, but whoever submitted that one, let's hold off on that one just for now, because I think that could be a whole nother session we could do just on that. We do have a podcast too, if you search on that, if you have some more questions, we get into the weeds on it. Chris, here's another one. I'm going to kind of put some of these questions together just so we can hopefully get through a little faster. So somebody had asked about really the essential documents, if you will, for tax preparation. So again, kind of keeping it, if you're just getting, say, one form as a full-time employee, great. Say they're coming in from multiple areas. I don't know if you want to talk really briefly on K1s, but what does it really look like for an individual that may be getting W-2 digital versus, do I need my paper copy? What does that look like? And essentially kind of walk us through, the way you guys work with clients and have in the past.
Yeah, we are on our private CPA practice. We're a virtual firm, so we're always looking for the digital copies of these source documents. However, you're not required to have a physical or digital copy. As a taxpayer, what you're going to want to do is have a folder, okay? And have a physical folder and then have an email box folder. This is what I do personally. So any type of documents I receive in the mail that are tax related, I put in a special folder. I would actually have a different colored folder that you keep at your house, and you just put those in there, okay? And then I also have an email folder that anything that gets emailed to me or sent to me digitally, I'm putting that in that folder. So you're organizing your documents. When it comes to document organization, the most important thing you can do when working with a tax professional is making sure you have all your information. I want you to realize, think about you're cooking a big meal, right? The last thing you want to do is prep the meal, get it in the oven, and realize you're missing one ingredient, and you have all these people sitting at the table, and now you've got to stop and go to the store. Make sure you have your documents in order before you meet with your tax professional. And if you're not sure what you need, almost all tax professionals will provide you with a checklist. That checklist is going to be based typically on your previous year's tax return. So you might have an extra W-2, or maybe you have a new bank statement or something different from last year, but typically you're going to look at prior year return. That tax professional is going to provide you with a checklist, and that checklist is going to be what you can check off in the documents that you have. Most tax professionals have a tax organizer or survey as well. So that's going to be, like in our private CPA practice, it's about a 10 to 12 minute survey clients fill out digitally, telling us, hey, it's a questionnaire, okay? Do you have any new dependents? Do you have a change in marital status? Do you have this? Do you have digital assets? It's just helping you and the tax professional organize your documents to make sure that you have everything. So checklists are very important. Making sure you have all the information. And remember, a lot of these documents are only sent digitally now, like mortgage statements and bank statements and health savings account statements. Well, sometimes you're missing something. So let's say you're in a situation where you have 90% of your information, you're waiting for one, let's say it's called a K-1 from an estate. At that point, I would move forward with the tax preparation process and just let your tax preparer know, hey, I'm waiting on this one document, because what you don't want to do is that document comes to you on April 10th and you think you're going to get everything done by April 15th. Here's my information. Do we think I'm going to owe? Great. I'm in a refund situation. Let's wait till I get that K-1 to file, and if I have to file an extension, no big deal. But being organized is your most important hack. And ultimately, within being organized, making sure that not only if you own a business, your bookkeeping is set up properly, your bank accounts are reconciled. If you own rental properties, you're providing with your tax professional either some type of digital record of, or it could be even handwritten. Here's my rental income. Here are all my expenses. Here's my mortgage statement. So the more organized you can be, the better result you're going to get. It's just like anything. I want you to think about something, John. Let's say you're going to a restaurant, right? And you are looking for a table for two. You're probably going to get sat pretty quickly. Or let's say it's two adults and you can say, hey, would you like to sit at the bar? There's no wait at the bar right now. Yeah, you and I, let's say we walk in, we can go there, direct to the bar. But let's say I have 10 people in my party. Hey, I'm looking for a table for 10. It's going to be hard to get sat, right? So don't be that person that's kind of, oh gosh, I got a table for 10, but I think I'm going to get sat right. Or even worse, hey, I've got a table for 10. Okay, is your party here? Actually, only 6 of the people are here. Well, sorry, we can't sit you till another table pops up.
That's what I was thinking when you said that. It's like, oh yeah, I got 10, but I got to wait on the other 4, and I got to figure out where they want to sit, indoors or outdoors. It's like,
right. Or they're not even
whatever,
right? Because then they won't even sit you. So being organized is important, and be proactive with getting those documents together.
Absolutely. And going back to what I forgot which question it was specifically where you had mentioned earlier on, it's, you mentioned about getting the best result possible. So everything you can do to get a leg up, I shouldn't say a leg up on the relationship, but to set yourself up for success goes both ways. I quote you specifically, verbatim, probably 100 times over the past 10 years is the hardest part about your job is not filing returns, it's collecting information. So anybody that's watching this, you can absolutely quote Chris on that and kind of take that to heart, right? It's almost like whatever job you're doing, it's getting, we'll say what it is, getting people to kind of follow your process, follow the way you're doing it. I mean, that's a tough thing, especially if you do the same thing all day and then all of a sudden you want to do something different.
Well, one more thing I want to point out on this, and I know we've got a couple other topics we're going to touch on, is that if you're working with a tax professional that seems to have a process, even if it's not your favorite process, embrace that. Because what you don't want is a tax professional or firm that does not have a good process. Oh, just bring in your stuff whenever, because guess what? They're never going to get ahead of the game. If they've got 50 different ways of doing 50 different tax returns and not one process and one technology stack and one type of survey, then they're going to be very inefficient. You might get frustrated with the turnaround time.
Absolutely. And I did see a question just come in related to tax law changes. We won't get to that one on this one. We'll actually do a whole nother session on that one as well too. So if whoever asked that, be on the lookout here within the next maybe 3-4 weeks, we might touch that.
No, absolutely. The only thing I'll say on that is we just had an election. There aren't a ton of changes in 25 versus 24 because the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is still in play. But definitely keep your eye on that or follow Teaching Tax Flows information, and we'll be having updates. Yeah,
absolutely. One of the questions here, and I can actually answer this one because it makes me feel smart when I can answer one of these questions, right? It's, when should I start working on my taxes to avoid last minute stress? It's probably as soon as you can. like you were talking earlier, Chris, it's, not waiting until those deadlines and frankly, just knowing what those deadlines are, who you're working with on them, et cetera. So there you go. That's me feeling smart for the day.
Well, John,
another question.
yeah, we say in
I
teaching
tried
tax
to.
law, your tax return's a verb, not a noun. So it's something that you should be thinking about. For instance, I'll talk a little bit personally, but we've had real estate closings, either purchases or sales throughout the year. And at that point, once that closing occurs, I automatically put it in my folder for tax preparation for the next year. So I'm not scrambling around. So if you get documents throughout the year, make sure that you're keeping track of that and putting them in some type of place, either digitally or personally or physically, rather.
And last two questions, and I'll ask them both at the same time, and I'll let you answer them however you choose, is, what are some of the common mistakes people make when using a tax software and how can they avoid them? But then also, when is it worthwhile to hire a professional instead of a DIY option?
Right. Great question. That might sound like a broken record. It's worth it to hire a professional if working with someone's going to get you the best result possible, and you can't do that on your own. And it might not be, it might not be that you don't know a lot about tax law, but the thing is, when you're, typically the triggering event when you start working with a tax professional is going to be major change in family. Like, let's say you now have a child, and you have daycare expenses, and you've never had that before. You got married, or you bought a rental property, or you started some type of gig work. Most people that have a business, this is like their full-time, it's their full-time income and employment. They're already working with a tax professional. But to make that jump of when do I start working with them, typically it's going to be when you have a change of life event and you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of all of the credits and deductions available. So you may have purchased a home. You may have, like I said, had a child, daycare expenses. Maybe again, you moved, and you have multiple states to file in. There are some amazing tax preparation software out there. And I think it's a great fit for millions of Americans. However, the software is only as good as you putting the information in it. So if you click one wrong button, or if you do something that unintentionally, or forget to take a deduction, there's a lot of times the self-prepared returns, I see errors. And most of the errors, I would say, John, 90% of the time, self-prepared return errors are in favor of the taxpayer. 10% of the time, it's something that they did, maybe most likely unintentionally, that helped them and didn't help the IRS. But 90% of the time, it's something that could have been better for that taxpayer. So, and there's also, John, the peace of mind. You could cut your own lawn, you could wash your own car, you can change your own oil if you'd like. But sometimes there's a peace of mind knowing a professional is doing that, and in having that person that can really look at things. And if you're looking at doing tax planning too, that's the baseline for tax planning, is a well-prepared tax return.
Awesome. I know I said those are the last two, but one quick one that is related to that and feeds off it. What if somebody's been doing it on their own for a number of years, say they are doing better, say they got a new job, income's an increase, they bought our real estate, anything that's been a change, they open a business, and they say, you know what, it's time for me to actually work with somebody, but I think I may have made some mistakes maybe the past 2-3 years. Can you walk us through really, really briefly what that looks like, and as far as for the possibility of doing amended returns, if they should be afraid of that, or what that looks like?
Absolutely. So now you can amend returns electronically, which is nice. When you start working with a tax professional, one of the first things that the tax professional is going to ask you for is your prior year tax return, or maybe last 2 to 3 years of tax returns, a minimum of at least 1 year. That gives you a window as a tax professional of what someone's situation is like. Now, there will be changes inevitably for the next year, but that's your baseline. When a tax professional looks at a tax return, typically you're going to talk to the potential client and say, okay, I see you have this. And if something pops out as an error, you're going to mention that. If someone feels like they may have left some money on the table or made a mistake, the good news is you have 3 years to file an amended return and get a refund. So take a deep breath. Now, I will say this, since this is a readiness session, if it's March 21st and everyone's kind of working through getting their 2024 return done, and let's say there's an amended 2023 return that has to be done, I would recommend get the 24 return completed properly, then go back and amend 2023. with a caveat, unless the 2023 amended return will affect something on the 2024. So you really got to weigh that out. And if it will, you'll probably want to, maybe file an extension for 24 and amend 23. But you have 3 years to file an amended return. I guess thank you for the person on here that asked about the last minute stress. What you can avoid last minute stress is probably just file an extension, right? Because that gives you till October to file anyway. The last minute stress, a lot of times, put on yourself. So think about that. I would engage with a tax professional as early as possible and make sure they're a good fit for you. Not just price, but technology stack, time frame, knowledge, because it truly is a partnership. And you want someone. I want taxpayers to think about that person as an asset and not an expense. That's the relationship you're looking for.
Absolutely. That's a great way to close it out on this one. Again, I didn't mean to cut anybody off on the questions that may have been submitted. We promise we will get to them, as I've mentioned multiple times, in some way, shape, or form. But again, if you're joining this live or joining it after the fact, if you're listening to it, watching it, regardless, we do have some resources, tons of free stuff out there. Me and Chris obviously enjoy doing this way more than we probably should, given the topic at times. But we do have multiple podcasts. So really just Google teaching tax flow, and you'll be surprised what comes up. We have the podcast. We have a YouTube channel. I want to say we have close to 50 or 60 hours just of content on YouTube. And it's really nice because it's broken down in specific little chunks. But then also on top of that, given the topic, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. If you go to 2025.tax, literally 2025.tax, not .com in there, you can actually connect with a tax professional. So if you're interested in finding the right person to work with you, fill out that little form, no obligation. It's not like you're, having to even put in your social number or anything. It's just starting that discussion and connecting you with the right person. So our team's happy to do it. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for submitting those questions. Keep them coming. And also, if you're interested in joining our private Facebook group, I don't think I mentioned this one yet, defeatingtaxes.com. Go to that, send it straight to the group. Free resources, excellent people, even better conversation. So thank you so much for everybody joining us. We'll see you again here very soon.